Well, at this point, I think Iran is in a position where they would be wise to negotiate. They may choose not to negotiate. Tonight, Israel has the airspace over Iran. Israel has defeated or completely reduced the capabilities of all their proxy groups, and all of their military leadership has been killed by Israeli airstrikes. I don't believe Iran has much room to negotiate at this point. At this point, I think it's a matter of time before we see regime change in Iran. And hopefully, regime change is initiated by the Iranian people and Iranians continue to lead their nation. I think we'll continue to see the strikes occur on both sides until Iran no longer has the ability to fire on Israel. Every day, Iran loses its capabilities or its abilities to launch missiles. They are both running out of missiles and the ability to launch them. Israel is quickly identifying their launch sites and taking out their launch vehicles with every evening. Every time Iran launches a strike, Israel canters and destroys another missile launcher. So soon, Iran will not have the ability to even launch missiles anymore. I'm hoping in the interim, some negotiation occurs. I know President Trump in the United States is pushing for a negotiation of some sort. No one wants to see the killing continue. And we are all hoping that this comes to an end quickly, inshallah. Once the Ayatollah is no longer in power, I don't believe the Ayatollah will negotiate or come to the table so long as he is in power. And I believe that that is the point where we're at now. I know President Trump has said he does not want to see the Ayatollah killed. In fact, President Trump denied a plan to kill the Ayatollah. That's not what President Trump wants to see. However, I have not seen any indications that these strikes and this war will end so long as the Ayatollah is still in power. Initially, the goal of the strikes was to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities. However, Israel has been very successful in eliminating high-level ranking members of the Iranian government. And I believe at this point, many believe that this is a good time for regime change. There is a large movement within Iran that has wanted regime change. However, the IRGC, of course, has prevented this from occurring and prevented any movements from occurring. But time will tell if they still have the ability to keep the people of Iran from rising up. I believe President Trump would like to see a negotiated end to this conflict. President Trump has said he wants to see the killing stop. I know he was very frustrated that Iran would not negotiate. President Trump initially gave the Iranian government 60 days to come to the negotiating table. And when they did not, Israel struck on the 61st day, one day after the deadline had passed. So I know President Trump does not like war. He's not pushed for military involvement for the United States in any war. So I do believe that there'll be some sort of negotiated settlement. But again, I don't believe that that'll occur so long as the Ayatollah is in power. Oh, President Trump has been very clear. He does not want to be predictable. There's no way Iran or anyone else will know exactly what his plans are. If a strike occurs, it will be a surprise to everyone. But I don't believe the U.S. involvement will be any larger than an airstrike. The United States may assist Israel in destroying nuclear sites currently in Iran. But I don't believe we'll see, if America is involved, it will be anything more than airstrikes. I think the 2-week guideline was Iran's capability before Israel struck. I believe Israel strikes have already crippled Iran's abilities to create an atomic bomb. I, for one, am surprised that Iran does not already have one. But I think if Iran had nuclear capabilities right now, they would have already used it against Israel. I don't believe Iran has the ability at this point to create a nuclear warhead. Their scientists have been killed. Their facilities have been bombed. Their leadership is in array. Israel orchestrated a hit on all of the Iranian leadership at once. got them all to meet in one place, then struck it. Currently, they are in a straight state of chaos, and they are reacting. When you're simply reacting in war, you will not win. An effort to win a war or a confrontation, you must be taking the initiative. Iran no longer has the ability to take the initiative. I wouldn't be surprised if negotiations occur. However, the White House is willing to negotiate. I don't believe the Ayatollah and the Iranian government at this point are willing to negotiate. President Trump would like to see this ended tonight, if possible. But at this point, I don't believe the Iranian government are willing to cease the war with Israel at this point. And the current leadership in Iran has showed an inability to put the Iranian people first. They've showed that again and again and again over time, continually engaging in war and incursions into Iraq, Afghanistan, supplying the Houthis, supporting the war in Gaza and in Lebanon. So I do not see this administration in Iran wanting to come to the table. They have never showed concern for the Iranian people, and I think they will continue to fight out of sheer pride. I don't believe Israel does, but I do believe the United States has the ability to destroy them. One thing for sure will occur from this conflict: Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. That has already been accomplished. They will no longer have the ability to develop nuclear weapons, and that is something that we can all be sure about. And I think everyone in the region can celebrate that fact. No one wants to see the Iranian government in control of nuclear weapons, but the United States absolutely has the ability to use ordnance or bombs to destroy these facilities. It's just a matter of whether or not the President Trump decides to engage. That's a very good question. Here is the question in any war in the Middle East. What happens if it's a military solution? Who takes the place of the current Iranian government? Will it be better or worse? When Saddam Hussein was removed, that was good. But I think we all saw what happened in Iraq after Saddam was removed. The Iranians moved in and more war occurred. There needs to be a plan for Iran to move forward under Iranian leadership and put a priority towards peace and taking care of its people. Now, negotiations, I think, is always preferable to war. But in the past, the Iranian government has simply used negotiations as a tactic to stall and allow more time for weapons development, and has purchased more weapons and engaged in more terror attacks, both in the Persian Gulf and in Israel, and supplying the enemies of Israel. So I don't think that negotiations at this point will be very fruitful. What I hope to see is Iran's nuclear capabilities eliminated, so no one has to worry about it again. And I think everyone believes, yes. That is a good point, and that is the most difficult part. Sometimes fighting the war is the easiest part. The difficult part comes after the fighting and creating a ethical, good government that is just supporting the people and taking care of the people of that nation. I've seen talks of the Shah's former family talking about wanting to return to Iran. I think elections should be held in Iran, and they should choose their own leadership. But time will tell what occurs. I hope the United States, and the world for that matter, has learned from their mistakes of the invasion of Iraq. While it was, I think everyone agrees Saddam Hussein needed to be eliminated, and he was. The world did not handle issues in Iraq very well after the elimination of Saddam Hussein. And look what we ended up with. We ended up with Daesh, and we ended up with Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and prolonged fighting. So we need to be very careful with what happens after the fighting. Again, fighting the war sometimes is the easiest part. That's a very good question. We know that after Iraq fell and the United States pulled back in 2012, who moved into Iraq? Iran, the Russians, and China moved in. Afghanistan, today the Chinese are in Afghanistan. So the difficult part is to make sure that after the fighting is over, Iran can turn the page and have a good government and be ruled by Iranians in a peaceful way, so that Iran is no longer a threat to the world or the region. President Trump has been very clear about not wanting the United States to be engaged in another war. The only one who wins in wars are the people who make weapons. I think both countries have different interests. I think for Russia, Russia is enjoying the war in Iran because it takes attention from the Ukraine. I think China has an economic interest in Iran and doesn't want to lose the oil exports. However, China has the ability to buy oil from any market around the world. It's not a huge consequence for China. But for Russia, a war or conflict in Iran draws the world's attention away from what's happening in Ukraine and is very useful for them. Iran doesn't have the ability to control the seas. Iran doesn't control the seas anymore. Iran doesn't control the skies anymore. Iran is barely holding on to its own territory right now. That is just an empty threat. Iran does not have the ability to control the straits. Iran can't even control its own skies. Israel owns the skies over Iran tonight. Iran doesn't have the ability to do it. If you remember, in 2003, when the United States invaded Iraq, Saddam Hussein's spokesman was in Baghdad claiming victory and claiming the Americans would burn in their tanks. Meanwhile, American tanks were already rolling into Baghdad and the fight was over. These are just the empty words of the Iranian government. They no longer have the ability to control the straits. And as I said, they don't even control the skies over Tehran tonight. Israel owns the skies over Tehran. Well, you remember the Chancellor of Germany said to the world, Israel is doing the dirty work for the world right now. I believe the European Union will push for a negotiated peace. However, no one is going to deny Israel in their mission to de-weaponize Iran. Israel is suffering the pains of war, but they're doing this on behalf of the world. No one wanted Iran to have a nuclear weapon. No one. I think the European Union will push for peace and a quick end to hostilities, but no one will push Israel to stop this attack until the mission is accomplished. The effort is to make sure that we can end hostilities as quickly as possible. This war is very difficult on the people of Iran. People have been displaced, they've evacuated, they're moving around, they're suffering under sanctions. These negotiations could help ease the pain of the Iranian people. And I hope the Iranian government considers that. I hope they move to end their quest for a nuclear weapon and negotiate a peace and meet the terms of the European Union and the United States and give up their quest to have a nuclear weapon so that the people of Iran can live in peace and prosper. If 60 Iran was given 60 days to agree to a denuclearization program, to eliminate their nuclear program altogether. This was the bottom line. Iran did not commit to doing this. So Israel took action one day after the deadline and began forcibly reducing Iran's ability to reach out and threaten the world with a nuclear weapon. Iran knew the deadline. I believe the Iranians thought that they could continue to push back the deadline, continue to try and talk without agreeing to terms until they got to the point they had a nuclear weapon. It didn't work. They misjudged and they were wrong. And now the people of Iran are suffering because of it. I think the current leadership in Iran will continue to fight as long as it can. But those days are numbered. Iran is running out of missiles. They're running out of missile launchers. And eventually, the Iranian leadership will no longer be in power, one way or the other. The people remove them, Israel will have an airstrike that will eliminate them, and eventually there will be a negotiated peace. As soon as they understand that they will never have a nuclear weapon, they're not capable of defeating Israel, the sooner the suffering in Iran will end. So I believe that we're looking at another 2 to 4 weeks of fighting. And then depending on which path is taken, we'll begin a peace negotiation and begin helping the people of Iran. I hope the people of Iran are able to get new leadership that puts the people first and doesn't focus on war.